thank you for watching this week. I want to talk to you about something that I think is very important, and I think it could be a pivotal moment in your life where decisions are concerned. Back when I was in high school, we didn't have cell phones. We had, just regular phones. And I remember my parents had their own phone line. I had my own phone line. And every morning I would get a phone call from my mom about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would answer it, and she'd say, Terry, this is your wake-up call. And I'd get up and go to cheerleading. Well, I believe that this is your wake-up call. You're watching this on purpose. I don't believe it's an accident that you are watching this podcast, because I believe this is your wake-up call. Wake-up call for what? To get up, get dressed, get prepared to do everything God's put in your heart to do. Years ago, when I was just practicing hearing the voice of God, journaling my time with the Lord, I remember sitting down with a pen and paper, and I just heard this phrase come up in my heart. I heard, your calling is calling. Your calling is calling. And I wrote that down. I even did an entire message on your calling is calling, because it's all about you preparing for what God's called you to do. I want you to know you have a calling on your life. It may not be preaching or teaching. It may be a calling for administrative work. It may be running a business. It may be teaching class. It may be being a mom, being a dad. You have a calling on your life, but you have to prepare for it. Listen to this. Isaiah wrote, he said, I have labored to no purpose. I've spent my strength in vain and for nothing. Job said, my life drags by day after hopeless day. Then he said this, I give up. I'm tired of living. Leave me alone. My life makes no sense. Well, a lot of times we can feel that way. In fact, that sounds like my old diaries and journals. You can feel that way about life, where you're like, Terry, that's great. You say my calling's calling, but my life drags by day after hopeless day. I give up. Well, I want you to know God is speaking to you today. Don't let another day just drag by when God is saying, I put you on this earth for a purpose. There's another scripture that David wrote, life is a vapor. Life is a mist, a wisp of air. That's your life here on earth. Here today, gone tomorrow. In other words, you don't have time to waste. Don't let another year go by, another day go by, just dragging on. Living this year as a repeat of last year. When God's saying we don't have time to waste, let's do something. Well, John Maxwell made this statement. He said, a lot of times people are wondering, why am I here? What am I on earth for? Well, he said, if you can answer this question, he said, if you were told that you have 6 months left to live, what would you do? He said, that's the answer to your dreams. Those are things you need to get serious about. You think about that. For example, if you were told you have 6 months left to live, would you finish the book that you started but you just never finished? Would you get that second job to pay off your debts so your family's not left with it? What would you do? Would you get the life insurance policy that maybe you've talked about for years but you just keep procrastinating on it? Would you have the courage to open that business and confront all those fears? Would you get out of a relationship that God told you not to be in, but here you're told you've only got 6 months left to live? I bet you'd get out of that relationship. Those are the answers to some of the things you may feel God's telling you to do. When you think in terms of eternity and you think in terms of actually death, it helps you realize, what? God's speaking to me. I know I've got to get serious about some things. You think about, the reality is the day's going to come when every single one of us are going to have a tombstone with your name written at the top. And on the left side, it'll have the date you were born. On the right side, it'll have the day that you die. But when you really think about that, it's that little dash in the middle that determines everything. That little dash determines what you did with the life God gave you. It determines, did you fulfill His plan for your life? Were you so consumed with your past, with the memories of the past, that you just gave up on the future? What did you do with that little dash? I heard Rick Warren say that many people spend their lives trying to create a lasting legacy here on earth. He said they want to be remembered when they're gone, yet what ultimately matters most will not be what others say about your life, but what God says about you. So I want you to think about that. God has a calling on your life, but you have to discover that calling. And that's the first point I want to make with you today. Number one is pick up the call. that could be, you could take that nonchalantly, pick up the call. But do you know, I mean, even in my personal life, I have a really bad habit of not answering my phone. Even my voicemail says, hey, this is Terri, leave me a message and I'll play it. But do you know that I can hear the phone ringing, but I've gotten so used to not answering it that sometimes I don't even hear it ringing anymore. It's just background noise. I don't even hear it ringing. Well, you know, you can get that way in your relationship with the Lord and His plan for your life. You don't even hear Him calling you anymore. You don't feel like God has anything special for you. But I'm telling you, God has a plan for your life. In the book of Jeremiah, it says, before you were formed in your mother's womb, God knew you. Before you were created, He had a special plan for your life. So, I want you to recognize that. God does have a plan for your life. But you have to make that decision that you're going to pick up the call. Pick up the phone and say, Lord, I'm going to do what you put me on this earth to do. And I want to challenge you with this. Spend some time alone with God. You know, sometimes you just have to get away from the noise of the world, get away from the noise of your family and your friends, turn the TV off, turn your phone off. Don't check Instagram or Facebook for about 10 minutes. And just sit there with the Lord and say, Lord, speak to me. I want to hear what you want me to get serious about. I want to know what you put me on this earth to do. And let me just warn you, God says in His word, my sheep know my voice. You're going to hear God's voice, but you have to practice hearing the voice of God. You know, speaking of calling, it's funny, I know we have caller ID nowadays, but, you know, I can just call my friends and instantly they know, hey, Terri, just by the sound of my voice. Maybe it's a little recognizable, but still, they know my voice because they've heard it so often. I don't have to say, hey, best friend, this is Terri Savelle Foy. No, she knows just by the sound of my voice, it's Terri. You can get that way with God. With God, the big creator of the universe, you can get to that place in your life where you say, I know that's the voice of God. I know He's speaking to me. So I want to challenge you. Practice hearing God's voice. Get a journal, get a pen, and just listen for the voice of God. Why? Because your calling is calling. You have the choice to pick it up or to push decline. I believe God's speaking to you today, and He's saying, this is your wake-up call. Let's get moving. I want to lead you step by step into my perfect plan for your life. So, I want you to get this series I taught, Your Calling is Calling. I share several steps on how to prepare for that calling. Because, you know, when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. You have to prepare now so when God brings opportunities your way, you're ready. You can seize them. So get this series. I believe it'll help you in preparation. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe to this channel. Share it with your friends. Y'all start growing together, pursuing your dreams together. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter so I can keep you motivated to pursue your dreams. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.